Hey everyone, welcome back to Firsthand Globetrotting. I'm on the road again, about to take my first international trip in over 2 years. I'm really excited to explore outside the US again. This trip is just across the border in Canada, so not very far, and I'm keeping it really simple by just taking a drive up instead of worrying about flying. It was a really easy trip, and other than a little bit of rain partway through, it was smooth sailing on the roads. Traveling around the US has been fun, but I'm so excited to get back out to other countries again. Canada isn't very far away or hugely different, but it's just nice to get to use my passport again. I'm on my way to Niagara Falls, Canada. It's right on the border. I could literally walk across a bridge from Niagara Falls, New York to Niagara Falls, Ontario if I wanted to. When I got to my hotel, I was pretty surprised that the hotel lobby had a big open design, almost like a ski lodge. I was expecting something much more generic. If you stay at a lot of hotels, you kind of get used to the typical look and feel and design, so it's nice to have some change. When I got up to my room, the view from my hotel was way better than I expected. I had a great view of American Falls, the tourist areas in Niagara Falls, and even a slight view of the mist from Horseshoe Falls. The layout of Niagara Falls kind of reminds me of a mini Las Vegas, where there's a super touristy main area, but then 1 or 2 blocks away, it turns into a regular city if you look on the other side of your hotel. The tourist stuff is all concentrated in the Clifton Hill and Falls View parts of town, with not much outside of those places. Even the hotel pool kept up with the ski lodge look, so much nicer than the average hotel pool. But, like always, I wasn't at my hotel long because I wanted to get out into the city and start exploring Niagara Falls to see what it had to offer. I'm walking in the heart of the tourist zone, Clifton Hill, so don't be surprised if things look a little cheesy and weird and over the top. Before coming, I told myself I'm just going to embrace Niagara Falls' non-stop parade of tourist traps and not worry if I'm getting suckered into a lot of weird attractions. The waterfalls are definitely the main reason to come, but if I don't waste a bunch of money on other spots, can I really say I got the full Niagara Falls experience? It's almost like a carnival or amusement park here with all of the food stalls. The first thing that caught my eye was Dinosaur mini golf. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know I have a hard time saying no to mini golf on vacation. And the fact that it was dinosaur themed meant that it was definitely going to be the first tourist trap of my trip. Niagara Falls is full of tourist traps, so make sure to count along to see how many of them sucker me in and take my money from me. It was in surprisingly good shape. Last year, I went to a dinosaur mini golf in the Outer Banks that was in rough shape, but the dinos here actually looked pretty good. Pretty much everywhere you turn, there was another big dino looking back at you, thinking about eating you if you miss your putt. And in the middle, there's a big rocky mountain. I thought they did a pretty good job with the course. None of the holes were really fancy or unique, but they did a good job packing a lot of dinosaur statues around the course and keeping them looking nice. For a tourist trap, I was pretty happy with the whole experience. Everything along Clifton Hill is meant to grab your attention and make you want to spend money, but the most unexpected thing I saw was Frankenstein's monster on the side of a building holding a Whopper in its hands. The building is half House of Frankenstein and half Burger King, which is some really unusual cross-marketing and design. But as I was looking up at it, I noticed there's a roller coaster on top of the building, zooming the riders around from the rooftops. I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of tourist traps on this trip, since I'm already on my second only a few hours in. The monster was even waiting to say hello and greet me down below by the ticket booth when I got there. After walking up a few dark staircases to the roof, I got to see the coaster up close and load into the cart for the ride. It's nothing too exciting, you only do 2 short laps around the track, but I couldn't pass up a roller coaster ride on the rooftops. In Niagara Falls, you need to be willing to embrace your inner child, so when I saw the glowing sign for a midway, I couldn't help but walk in the front door. It has a casino-like atmosphere when you go in. There are different games packed wall to wall, and all of them have flashing lights and are making sounds and are trying to lure you into play. Near the front, you can exchange your real money for tokens. And if you win enough tickets, you can exchange them for prizes. Sounds easy enough, right? But just like a real casino, the odds really aren't on your side, so it's a lot easier to spend your tokens than it is to win a lot of tickets. I bought $20 worth of tokens, and I think I only won enough tickets for one of the tiniest prizes they had, worth maybe 25 cents or less. There were a lot of other people walking around with much bigger handfuls of tickets than I had, so I probably just wasn't that good and was not playing the highest payout games. But I love playing arcade games and carnival games, so for me, it really wasn't about the prizes. I just had fun spending my tokens, hearing the sounds, and watching the tickets come out. I've only been in Niagara Falls for a few hours at this point, and this is already the third tourist trap that's got my money. I'm starting off strong. There were little dessert and snack shops all over Clifton Hill, but there was one ice cream place that really caught my eye. They had these wild soft-serve ice cream creations. Mine had vanilla ice cream with cotton candy sticking out all around it, plus some sprinkles and sauce drizzled on top. I've had chocolate-dipped soft-serve before, but never anything this fancy. After all of the tourist traps I visited today, I finally made it down for my first view of the waterfalls. Just a quick peek for now, but lots more of that tomorrow. It's pretty amazing how close the falls are to the main tourist street. You just walk a few hundred feet past the Clifton Hill tourist traps, and you're right at some great views and lookouts. Today was a long travel day, plus a few hours exploring Niagara Falls and the tourist stuff, so I ended up back at my hotel pretty early tonight. But since my hotel room has such a nice view, I was able to sit by my window and look out over the nighttime lights of Niagara Falls and keep an eye out on what's happening back in Clifton Hill. As I was relaxing in my room, I heard some sounds coming from outside the window, and when I went to look, there were fireworks going off near where the waterfalls are. I did some research, and it turns out that every night during peak tourist season, they have a fireworks display from the river between Canada and the United States. I was already pretty impressed with my hotel and the view, but being able to catch a fireworks show outside my window every night before bed is a nice little bonus. Almost as soon as the last firework lit up the sky, I was in bed getting ready for my next day in Niagara Falls. Waking up on day 2, the mood outside seemed a lot slower and more relaxed than last night, with all of the flashing lights and music and fireworks and excitement. It took me a long time to finally get my first views of the waterfalls yesterday, but today they were my number one priority, so I headed there as soon as I could. I really like how close the tourist area is to the falls, so it's really easy to get to. But I'm not only going to look at the falls from the overlooks, I'm going to get on the water and take a boat tour right underneath them. Each country has one company that does the up-close boat tours, and it's Niagara City Cruises on the Canadian side. You buy your tickets up top, and then I made my way down to the dock area below. But don't worry, an elevator takes you most of the way. It's a pretty big operation at the docks, but I felt they did a good job moving a lot of people through quickly. As soon as I scanned my ticket, they handed me my stylish red rain poncho and I put it on. They may seem a little silly, but trust me, wear it, you'll need it later. As the boat before mine was unloading, I saw a lot of very wet people getting off, but they also looked like they were smiling and had a great time, so I was getting pretty excited to get on and set sail for the falls. I asked one of the people working there where their favorite spot on the boat was, and they said on the lower level right at the front if you want to get wet, so once I got on, I headed over there and got myself ready for the tour. Within a few minutes, we were setting sail and on our way to the first waterfall, American Falls. As we got closer to it, you can see some mist starts filling the air, clouding the camera. I thought that this would be as misty and wet as the entire ride would get, but boy was I ever wrong. As we moved into the area between American Falls and Horseshoe Falls, the mist went away, and we were only a little bit wet from the water and the mist, as you can probably tell from the water droplets on the lens. Not quite as exciting, but this area gave a really nice look back at Niagara Falls, with all of the hotels towering high on the land up above. The American Falls were nice and all, but as we moved closer and closer to Horseshoe Falls, you really start to realize why that one is the most famous and the star of the show. It's like a wall of water wrapping around, with huge clouds of white mist where the falling water hits the river below. The water we were moving through seemed to get choppier and choppier and choppier every minute, with waves and foam swirling around below us. You can really feel everyone's anticipation, wondering how far we're going to go and how close we're going to get to the waterfall. Before, when we pulled up to American Falls, everyone was impressed and taking pictures, but for the Horseshoe Falls, people were really getting excited. The first thing you feel is the light mist starting to hit you, with little droplets of water starting to form on your rain poncho, and your face starts to get a little wet. But then, within about 30 seconds, it feels like you're in the middle of a storm. The wind makes any loose clothing start to blow around, and the water turns from a light mist into a full-on rain. Just look at the camera lens. We're getting completely soaked out here, with water constantly blowing over us. The falls are really close at this point, but it's so hard to see them with the mist and the water and the wind and everything else going on around me. It felt like I should have brought some swimming goggles on board to wear. The water is absolutely gushing over the falls, and the waves in the water are getting so big below us, pretty much the only thing you can hear is the sound of water at this point. All you can do right now is just sit back and enjoy it, while you look around and try to take in as much of the experience as possible. I definitely wouldn't want to fall overboard at this part of the trip. And if you have anything with you, you better make sure you're holding on tight, because if it falls into the water, it's pretty much lost forever. But then, after a few minutes in the splash zone underneath the falls, the boat started to turn around and take us back to shore. Considering how long we were getting splashed, the thin little rain ponchos they gave us actually did a pretty good job. Some parts of me, like my face, were a little bit wet, but I managed to stay pretty dry. The only thing left to do at this point is to wave to the next set of tourists about to get splashed. For me, this was completely worth it and a must-do in Niagara Falls. I wouldn't even consider this a tourist trap, since it's such a unique experience. To be able to get that close to the waterfalls and see and hear and feel just how massive and powerful they are is such an amazing thing to do. Getting to see them from shore was nice, but a tour like this is on an entirely different level. The entire trip was only around 30 minutes, and other than getting a little wet, it's such a great experience. Niagara Falls is filled with so many attractions and tourist traps that you could set up in any city in the world, but getting to see these two waterfalls up close and in person is the one experience that you can't find anywhere else on Earth. After all of the fun on the boat, I was ready to grab a quick lunch when I got back to dry land. Every time I come to Canada, poutine is one of the foods that I go out looking for when I'm here. It was easy to find in Niagara Falls since they sold it at little food stands and restaurants all over town. There was no way I could pass up getting some when I walked by. Fries, cheese curds, and gravy are such a simple combo, but so good. But I made sure to have a quick lunch since the weather was getting really nice and I wanted to spend even more time walking around and getting great views of the falls and nature. The area by the river has a long park section, so it's a really nice break from all of the stores and tourist stuff and sounds that you get everywhere else in Niagara Falls. And there's a boardwalk area you can walk along to get some great and completely free looks at the falls. It's so nice to be able to stand in one spot and see the Rainbow Bridge connecting Canada and the US, and then turn to see both American and Horseshoe Falls. You get such clear and unobstructed views of all of them at once. The American Falls aren't as big or impressive, but I really like the visual of the water crashing down onto all of the rocks below. As I walked down the boardwalk and got closer to Horseshoe Falls, I could really see how high the cloud of mist went up into the air. They even have a road that runs alongside the boardwalk. I didn't take my car down there, but it must give you a pretty nice view as you drive along. But one of the best views of Horseshoe Falls is kind of hidden away. After walking nearly to the end of the boardwalk and walking path, you have to go through an old stone building, but it's worth the trouble. I was able to stand right by the edge of Horseshoe Falls and really see how fast the water is flowing over the edge. It's really impressive to see it from this angle and this close. And looking down below, I could see one of the tourist boats driving into the mist and the water, about to experience all of the wind and wetness and sounds and fun that I did earlier this morning. The thing I like the most is that nearly every new angle I see of the falls takes my breath away with how amazing nature can be. I decided to take the Incline Railway back up top after seeing the falls, since it's right out front of the last Horseshoe Falls viewpoint. I didn't realize how far downhill I had walked from my hotel to get here. The price was pretty inexpensive and it's a really short trip, so I figured it might be fun to ride this up instead of walking back. Plus, since there are no stairs nearby and only a few roads that you can actually take back up, it's one of the only good options you have. The entire ride was only 45 seconds long, so it's really quick. The rail cars all have big windows up front, so you can look down at the ground below as you start rising up the tracks. As you get higher, you can see another nice look down on Horseshoe Falls and can see the water pouring over the edge. See what I mean? There seem to be so many different views and angles of the falls everywhere you go in town. You come up in the Falls View part of town, which mostly just has a bunch of high-rise hotel buildings. I didn't spend too much of my trip in this neighborhood. After dinner, I made my way back to Clifton Hill as the sun started to go down. All of the attractions and buildings were starting to turn on their lights, and you could definitely feel things getting busier. I found that it was usually nearly empty in the morning, a little bit busier throughout the day, but then people really started coming out once the sun began to set and all of the lights started flashing. At night, there were so many cars driving up and down the road, playing music and not really going anywhere in particular, just cruising around. But Clifton Hill isn't the only place that turns on the lights at night. Once it got dark, I headed back to the boardwalk to see what the waterfalls look like at night. As you can see, they have color-changing lights illuminating both American and Horseshoe Falls, making them really distinct and beautiful in the darkness. You may be wondering why there are still so many people out along the boardwalk looking at the falls, even though it's nearly 10 at night. Remember how last night I got to see some fireworks from the window in my room? Tonight I came out with everyone else to watch them up close as they went off over the river, with the waterfalls providing the backdrop. I really like that they have fireworks every night of the week. It really adds to the whole Niagara Falls experience. Walking back after the fireworks, things were still super busy. Lots of cars, lots of people, lots of music, lots of noise. It's really fun and lively down here. I like the atmosphere a lot. But I'm happy that my hotel's a few minutes away from this area, since it would probably be hard to escape all of the crowds and noise if you wanted to take a break for some peace and quiet. I always prefer to be staying near the action, but not stuck right in the middle of it. But as you get a block or two away from the main tourist area, the crowds start to thin out really quickly. And then a few blocks more, and I was out of Clifton Hill entirely and back at my hotel for the night. That's the end of my second day in Niagara Falls and this video. But don't worry, I still have more time here, which means more to see and do and explore and experience. I've only been suckered in by a few tourist traps so far, but I promise there are a lot more to come in the next few days. In the next video, I'm going to take a ride on a virtual roller coaster, go hunting for ghosts, fight off some zombies that are trying to eat my brains, race around in some go-karts, get an aerial view of Niagara Falls, and so much more. Make sure to check back for part 2. A link to it will be down in the video description. If you have any questions about my time in Niagara Falls, ask me in the comments. And while you're at it, like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. On Instagram, I'm Firsthand Globetrotting. On Twitter, I'm Firsthand Globe. Follow me on there. And don't forget, it's an incredible world out there, so pick up your passport and do some firsthand globetrotting of your own.